to the Sacred Name Telecast, presented by the Assemblies of Yahweh of Bethel, Pennsylvania. I'm Elder Jacob O. Meyer, proclaiming the revealed personal name of our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and the good news of the kingdom of the heavens. And we greet you very warmly and joyfully, and hope that you'll join us every time that the Sacred Name programs can be heard in your area. I designed the Sacred Name radio broadcast in 1966 as a Bible study program, not as religious entertainment. And we've tried to maintain that format ever since. The Bible is the most intriguing and the greatest work, the magnum opus, of any literature that has ever been produced on this earth. Why, you might ask? The answer is because it is written through the inspiration of a great infinite mind. And we thank and praise Him for having given us the instructions that we have here in the sacred scriptures. So consequently, for more than 42 years now, the Sacred Name radio broadcast has been on the air, begun in 1966. And then we moved into television in the early 1970s, but we had a hiatus there of about 6 or 8 years. In 1992, we renewed the Sacred Name Telecast, and we began to apply some of our efforts to the telecast. And so consequently, we've been trying our best for the past decade and a half to present some of the best material that we can on the Sacred Name telecast and on the Sacred Name radio broadcast, of course, also. The world today is becoming more sinful than ever. I don't know if you're noticing what's going on, but the world is in decline, and there seem to be no answers to the problems that we confront today. A short time ago, oil was bringing $147 a barrel, which is just an outrageous price. Someone mentioned that if we were to charge foreign governments which are importing wheat what the oil prices or they're charging us for oil prices, we could balance our budget, it seems. But the world today is becoming much more sinful. Same-sex marriages seem to be taking hold now. And many other things are going on. It seems like every night or every other night there are shootings on the streets of our local cities, arsons, murders, and all kinds, and thefts, and all kinds of things going on. Why, I'm asking? Well, the answer, of course, is that we are living in a crisis time of Laodiceanism. The Laodicean assembly is mentioned here in Revelation chapter 3, verse 14. And we are living in an age of Laodiceanism. The word Laodicea is a Greek term, and it means, of course, Laos is people in Greek, and dike is justice. So it is justice to the people or justice of the people. And this means that judgment is about to fall for some of the Laodicean acts that are going on in this city. Then they're happening here in our time. These things says the Omean, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of El. Well, what was the beginning of the creation of the Almighty? Wasn't it His Son? And He brought forth His Son in the second Psalm. And then it continues here. I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot. What is he talking about? Cold nor hot. I wish that you were cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I will spew you out of my mouth. Well, that's been, people try to interpret this, but the best way that I can interpret it is that the Laodiceans are filled with leaven. You can arrest the action of leaven by heating the product or refrigeration. But here, these Laodiceans are lukewarm. What do you do when you want to raise bread? You put it in a nice warm place, and the bread will rise because of the action of the leaven in the product. And so consequently, because you are lukewarm and not hot or cold, I'll spew you out of my mouth because of the leaven that they're bringing forth. So I'm convinced that this is the best interpretation. Leaven in the scriptures represents false doctrine that leads to sin. And I could do a study on this for you, but for lack of time on the program today, you'll have to attend worship services with the Assemblies of Yahweh, and I'll be speaking on that subject sometime in the future, generally around Passover time, when we're told to throw out the leaven out of our houses and not eat any leavened products with our meals. No, we don't just eat unleavened bread during that time. We eat other things. We eat vegetables, and we eat meat and things of that nature. Because you say, I am rich and have gotten riches and have need of nothing. Isn't that what the people are saying today? Oh, we're so rich and so wealthy. We don't have need of anything. And yet, it says, when you know not that you are the wretched one and miserable and poor and blind and naked. Well, all of these are spiritual characteristics that are found, described and applied at other places in the Bible. What would nakedness constitute? Well, if you turn to the 15th chapter of the 16th chapter of the book of Revelation, Revelation 16, behold, I come as a thief. That's verse 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. So Revelation 16:15 explains the nakedness here, that spiritually they're like Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve sinned, they knew that they were naked, and so what did they do? Well, they took fig leaves and they sewed them together and made themselves some clothing. But vegetable matter cannot atone for sin, cannot cover over sin. Undoubtedly, in a short time, those fig leaves dried up and shriveled and disintegrated. Yahweh had to make coats of skins for Adam and Eve, we're told, in the third chapter of Genesis. Why did he have to make coats of skins? Well, how do you take a skin off an animal? You kill the animal. And so Yahweh performed the first sacrificial substitute for Adam and Eve, and he took animals, killed animals as sacrifices instead of killing Adam and Eve. And then he made coats of skins, and here then the animals' skins provided a covering, a durable covering for Adam and Eve. You see, the Bible is just the greatest source book for understanding the pathway to salvation. And so here I'd like to take just a few more verses. Because you say, I am rich and have gotten riches and have need of nothing. Well, that's where we are today. People say I'm rich, and yet what's happening at the present time? Well, the answer is that we're being taxed, and it's a confiscatory tax system here in our country. I wonder how our forefathers, who began the revolution, that began the Revolutionary War, and then became the United States of America. And the reason why they began the revolution was because of taxation without representation. I was at a meeting one night in which they wanted to build a new school in our local school district. And they had one of the people there that spoke was a high school student. Oh, we need this new school. But my thought was, why are we listening to a high school student who does not pay tax? Why are we listening to him speaking when here the revolution was founded on taxation without representation? Now this high school student gives representation without taxation. So these are the things that are happening. What would our forefathers say if they knew? No, we are not as rich as we think we are. And at the present time, according to one commercial on television at the moment, we are transferring $700 billion a year to foreign countries to purchase oil for our energy needs. And this individual says this is the greatest monetary transfer of funds that has ever happened in the history of the world. And yet that it seems sometimes as though some nations of the world are out to bankrupt the United States. Now, but you know that you're the wretched one, and miserable and poor and blind and naked. I counsel you to buy of me gold refined by fire, which indicates sound doctrine, if you're looking for a symbolic interpretation, that you may become rich, and white garments. The symbolic interpretation of white garments is robes of righteousness, that you may clothe yourself, and that the shame of your nakedness be not made manifest. And eye salve to anoint your eyes that you may see. What does that mean? Well, eye salve here, I think, represents the sacred name. Song of Solomon 1:3. Your name is as ointment or oil poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love you. So the interpretation, that's one interpretation of oil. The sacred name. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. The Laodiceans lacked zeal. They were apathetic, and they did not put forth effort to try and draw close to Almighty Yahweh. Now, each time that the Sacred Name programs come on, I hope you bring your textbook. That's the Bible. That's our only textbook. And don't forget to bring a pad of paper and a pencil or pen so you can jot down the scriptures that I use. Then you can reread the scriptures at the quiet time that you reserve for your spiritual enrichment, and you can recover a lot of what I said. And I hope that you become better acquainted with the Assemblies of Yahweh. We have our services here at Bethel, Pennsylvania, which is adjacent to I-78, midway between Allentown and Harrisburg. And if you're a person of goodwill, why, we'd be happy to welcome you to our worship services. But we worship according to the scriptures, and that is our services are held at 10 o'clock on Sabbath morning. And Sabbath is the seventh day of the week, commonly called Saturday. Now, I'm going to be offering some of this literature, so you write down our name and address and telephone number, and I'll offer the literature at the end of the program. The literature offer today is 8108. 8108. our name and address of where to write is the Sacred Name Telecast, or the Sacred Name Radio Broadcast, P.O. Box C. C as in Charles, Bethel, Bethel, Pennsylvania. Our zip code is 19507. Now, the easy way to order the literature is to use our toll-free number. And you can walk to the telephone 24 hours a day. During the daytime, the telephone is answered by a live voice. At nighttime, it's answered electronically. But we'll get the message. And the toll-free telephone number is 1-800-523-3827. That's 523-3827. So I'd like to urge you to copy that number down and just walk to the telephone and order literature number 8108. And if you're living in a foreign country, that number undoubtedly won't work, so you'll have to use our main office number, and that will ring in here to the international headquarters of the Assemblies of Yahweh. That is 717-933-4518. 717-933-4518. Now, I hope that you communicate with us. I think we have a lot to offer. At the present time here in our country, we are under assault. Higher and higher taxation and greater debts are being piled on the American citizen. At the present time, the debt clock shows well over $9 trillion in debt. And how much money does that take to service the national debt? We're also about $500 billion in arrears every year in the balance of trade. So consequently, things aren't rosy, and tough choices are going to have to be made. We're going to have to live within our means. Now, of course, when I was young, I was from the Depression era, and we didn't waste anything. We didn't throw out anything that was good that could be used later. We put it somewhere so that we could get it and use it later. But in the past decades, we have become a throwaway society. Why? Because we're wasting so many of the resources of this globe that would not have to be wasted. And so when Israel came out of Egypt, the king of Egypt decided that that Israel is growing too rapidly. And it says here in Exodus 1, verse 8, "Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who knew not Joseph. And he said to his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come and let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when war breaks out, they join themselves to their enemies. Therefore it says they set over them taskmasters." Now the term in the Hebrew is Sariah Messiim, and it means masters of taxation or tax collectors. And so it was at that time that they didn't just pay money for taxes, but they worked off the taxes. Now that they used to do here in this region, my grandfather and father would tell me they'd take a team of horses and a wagon perhaps, and they'd work for several days for the township and get paid for their work. And then fixing roads or something of that nature. And then they could work off some of their taxes that way. But here we see that Israel was afflicted by heavy burdens, and it says here that they became so desperate that they lifted up their voices to Yahweh and they asked Yahweh for help. That's what's going to happen here in the United States of America before too long. People are going to realize that there's nowhere to turn except to our Creator, our Father in heaven, and they will begin to lift their voices to the heavens and ask Almighty Yahweh to intervene. So here it tells us that they made the lives of Israel bitter with mortar and brick, building the store cities, Pithom and Ramses, and then the people called on Yahweh, and Yahweh selected Moses to come and lead them out of Egypt. And it says when Moses came to the people believed when they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel and that he had seen their affliction, and they bowed their heads and worshipped. And so this is what's going to happen one of these days here in our own country. In Isaiah chapter 33, we find a prophecy for the end of the age. When Yahshua the Messiah returns, a new kingdom will be established on this earth, and that will be the kingdom of heaven. It will be the kingdom of Yahweh. Here in Isaiah chapter 33, we'll begin reading here in verse 13. Hear, you that are far off, what I have done, and you that are near, acknowledge my might. The sinners in Zion are afraid. Trembling has seized the lawless ones. Who among us can dwell with a devouring fire? Who among us can dwell with everlasting burnings? You know, in one verse, Isaiah 29 verse 6, we have a list of Yahweh's punishments that are now falling on this very earth. Devouring fire on the west coast, earthquakes, a great noise like the Twin Towers coming down, and the Sufa and the Sa'ara, which means they're both translated in the Hebrew lexicons as hurricanes, but I like to use the one as a small whirlwind, which is the tornado. We've seen some ferocious tornadoes ripping apart various areas of our country. And the second one is the large whirlwind, which is the hurricane. We've seen terrible hurricane devastation here in our country and in other countries of the world. Yahweh is trying to tell us something as a world and as a people and as a nation. Stop sinning, and he will turn the curse into a blessing. So consequently, are you prepared to stand before the righteous judge? I hope that you are preparing yourself for what's going to happen when Yahshua the Messiah returns. A new kingdom will be established. It will be a kingdom where sin will be absolutely prohibited, and it will be dealt with. Here in John chapter 5, verse 22, for neither does the Father judge any man, but he has given all judgment to the Son. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10, it tells us that we must all someday stand before Yahshua's judgment seat. For we must all be made manifest before the judgment seat of the Messiah, that each one may receive the things done in the body according as he has done, whether it be good or bad. So friends, jot down this number, 8108, 8108. And I'd like to offer this literature. We're getting along toward the feast days, the holy days for the year, If you've never studied the subject of Yahweh's sacred appointments, why here you'll find 2 articles, Yahweh's sacred appointments and how to keep Yahweh's holy days. Here are 3 articles on the sacred name, and you should obtain these and go through them and compare them with what the Bible teaches. Do you want to determine that we're not a cult? No, there are many groups using the sacred name in the world today, but they're all cults because they follow the commandments of men. We follow the Bible exclusively. And you may get our Statement of Doctrine, the Standard Edition, or the Pocket and Purse Edition, and prove that we are not a cult. You can study the Bible systematically with our correspondence course. We'd be happy to send that out to you. Here is our beautiful calendar. There's still some of the year left. We mark off our calendar, especially with special markings so that you can see when the holy days are going to be observed or should be observed, so that you'll be able to keep Yahweh's holy days. We superimpose the biblical calendar on the secular calendar. Here's one that you should obtain. This is the milestone issue of the Sacred Name Broadcaster. And this one tells you about the growth of the ministry from the time it began in 1966. Here are some beautiful covers that we publish on the Sacred Name Broadcaster magazine. And you may choose one of these books, Israel's Tabernacle in the Wilderness, or the 7 Lamps of Yahweh, which deals with prophecy in the book of Revelation. No cost or obligation for any of this literature. I'll give you a free book. You make the choice. Do you want to have the book on the tabernacle or the one on commentary on Revelation? Write to the Sacred Name Broadcast, P.O. Box C, Bethel, Pennsylvania, zip code 19507. Our toll-free telephone number, 1-800-523-3827. That's 523-3827. And we'll be looking for your letter this week. Don't disappoint us. And if you can join us for worship, we'd be happy to have you if you're a person of goodwill and come to learn. Until next week at the same time on the same station, this has been Elder Jacob O. Meyer saying, may Yahweh bless you abundantly.